Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm making this video today about the sun, moon, ascendant, and the path to truthful identity. Very important subject. We talk all the time about our self, our true self, as well as our ego. We use words like self, ego, emotions, devotion. But how do we navigate all of these things? What is actually the ego? And how is it different than the true self, the unique self that inhabits your persona? And how is that unique self in this lifetime different than your universal self that is not of this world? So again, we have this, and by the way, how is that different than how you feel about all of it? Because many times all of that stuff is kind of clunking around in some state of confusion simply because of how we feel about it all. And then we can't really think very clearly about it. So that's what I'm going to discuss in this video today. Very important. Please like the video. Clicking like helps a lot more than you know. It pushes the video higher in relevant video searches. Also, please leave a nice comment. Comments also help more than you know as it raises the video in searches. Many times with hundreds of likes, there are only a dozen comments and they can be disproportionately negative. So be positive. Let me know if you like this. Even just a few words really helps. So subscribe, ring the bell to get notified of upcoming videos. Yes, indeed. Please do that. So again, we have this great opportunity to talk about this sort of trinity of influences, the sun, moon, the ascendant, and this path to our truthful identity and what that really is. So as it says here, I have this article that I have on my website. We're all trying to know ourselves. We hear the words like self, ego, emotions, devotion, but how do we navigate all these things? So Vedic astrology gives us a clear map if we know how to read the map correctly. But the birth chart is not just a map of our karma. It shows the specific currents of life, akin to rivers flowing into the ocean of consciousness and our true self. You can see this is the manual from a course I did years ago called Endless Inspiration Through Astrology. And no, it's not for sale or a discount here today. I'm just using this graphic as an example of wisdom flowing into the ocean of consciousness, the ocean of your pure self. You want to understand that that pure self, that pure ocean is like you could think of it as an ocean of light, which is also the nature of the sun, which I'll talk about in a minute. But all the planets, for example, we see them because of the light of the sun. And the Atman is the sun. But then all of these different planets are like rivers trying to connect with that ocean of truth. So you can think of each planet as a separate river, a separate channel that's trying to take you back to the ocean, right? They flow into the ocean, but some of them have a very circuitous path. They're somewhat landlocked further inland, so we have to, do a lot of maneuvering to get back to the ocean. Then others are very close to the ocean and right on the precipice, right? So think of that metaphor. But universally, we have there's this moon river. By the way, I know that's a song, Moon River, wider than a mile. Yes, I'm old. Which shows how our heart and emotions flow into the ocean of truth. So that moon current in each person, you have a current that's connected, that is the moon, that flows directly into the ocean of love, consciousness, and truth. Then there's also the sun river, which shows how your transcendent identity as this ocean of light is purifying this illusion of separateness that you have, right? So the sun is trying to purify this illusion that you're just this separate person here on earth, landlocked, far away from the ocean. So it's kind of like you're up here on one of these rivers and you're thinking that this is your nature. Your nature is someone up here landlocked in this river, but instead you're actually the ocean. So you're trying to get back to the ocean. But first you have to get in a boat and ride the current of that river. So you have to ride that emotion in the surface. So you're kind of landlocked in the emotions. Then you get in the boat and start going down the river. Then you get closer to the true nature, which is devotion. Not just the surface where you're stuck but the devotion. Same way with the sun, this limited power, but then you start getting in that boat on the river of the sun and it starts taking you closer to that ocean of light, right? But then there's the ascendant, and the ascendant ruler's river. Like, so for me, the ascendant is Gemini and the river is Mercury. Mercury is the one who is the ascendant ruler and that river. So that ascendant shows how you need to navigate these tricky waters. In this lifetime, you've incarnated through one of the ascendants. So that's a very interesting and unique identity. So again, how you specifically navigate these tricky waters in this lifetime. And again, this one is perhaps the most important to understand at first, because, you know, rather than acting through your personality, just trying to get people to like you and all of that, which is the lower quality of the identity of the first house, you can then connect with a deeper integrity and authenticity through the ascendant and the ascendant ruler, right? Now that's different than the ego. And this is where, again, tons of confusion. Is this my truthful personality where I'm just my truthful identity stuck, or is this my ego where I'm very disconnected? Because they can look very similar. The ascendant and the truthful identity in this lifetime can look very much like the ego, because we're mostly ego. It's also called the sahaja state. Our natural state is the ego, like the state that I'm using to communicate with you right now. I'm using the ego to communicate language, ideas through the body. The ego is very much about that separate animal that's trying to survive and live and think about things. And again, so we're mostly in the ego. So again, separating how these things work is extremely important. So we have to get that ego river. That ego third house is the house of the ego. It's our natural state, trying to fulfill our desires, be happy in the body as this separate organism with a name and history. So again, there's enormous confusion about how these things are different because we use the same words to describe them. Me, the self, how I feel, on and on and on. And so again, this is a real foundation and anchor of life, is to navigate that pure solar light energy, that emotional energy, that separate identity, that no, this feels like me. This isn't my ego. This isn't me trying to get something and where I'm confused and stuck. This is really my authentic self. How do I access that and then delineate it from my ego? So again, these are all very important things, and they need to be teased out with precision, not just in general, but also specifically. And if this is intriguing you, by the way, I am offering some limited assessments where I analyze these things for everyone's chart. And again, as it says here, this, the true identity, taming the ego and emotions, again, where it includes your ascendant, your unique identity, shows your deeper identity below the personality and natural interfacing with the world. So again, this will enhance your authenticity in all situations. You know when you can sense someone is being phony, right? When you sense someone is being phony, or when you're being phony, acting through your personality, because we're very good at that. Again, I have a Gemini ascendant, so I can act with a Gemini personality, just be, funny, friendly, lighthearted, and just be phony with it if I want. Saturn can be phony, or I'm sorry, Capricorn can put on a kind of phony Capricorn persona, So the ascendant is also where we have this phony identity underneath it all. And again, so when you sense someone's being phony, it's because they're vibrating at a lower frequency of the ascendant. Again, it's not the ego. It's a lower vibration of the ascendant. You need to know what that is. Every person has an ascendant. What's the lower vibration of the Pisces ascendant? What's the lower vibration of the Scorpio ascendant? The personality that the Scorpio will put forward. How is that different than the ego? Because the ego is very different. Ego is not the ego also has its own drive, which you see. Third house and its ruler, that's the ego. It rules your desires and the things you do to satisfy your desires. But that's just on the surface. Underneath it all, the ego does serve an important function. You have to know the difference between when something is driving your ego, or your ego is driving something, or when something is connecting with your truthful identity shown by the ascendant. And people are very confused by this. First of all, they think everything is their true identity, and most of the time it's their ego. And again, it doesn't mean the ego is bad or wrong. It just means that we're more about our desires and what we want in a very simple way, rather than what we know is right, because the things that we know are right, that really connects with our soul and our true nature, are also going to be challenges and are going to be difficult. Whereas often the ego is the thing that's easy and immediate. I want it right now. So again, very simple way to just, to delineate the difference. But of course, that's just in general. How does it work for you? Because you have an ascendant, you also have the ascendant ruler, you have the third house, you also have the third house ruler, right? So these are the ways to delineate between the separate identity of the ascendant and the ego. What's called the Sahaj Bhava, that's the third house, right? And then also you have the sun, Atman, the transcendent identity. That rules your transcendent identity, not just your unique identity in this lifetime, but that pure spirit, that ocean of light from which you and everyone comes from. That's the sun. In fact, it's the sun that burns off the lower facets of personality and unique identity and leads you back to that pure body of light. It's the sun that is really that ocean of light. When we say namaste, we're saying the light in me recognizes the light in you as the same light. And we are not just the separate containers of water reflecting light, because we can see the light reflected in the container. We are not just the container reflecting light, we are the true light. So for example, I have Gemini ascendant, right? So I could put on the Gemini personality, but my true nature is to get closer to that Gemini quality, which is to act with more authenticity. And again, that means I've had to take a chance and actually put my ideas out there and all the things that are hard. It's easy to do it on the surface. It's harder to do it underneath it all in a unique way. But then even all of that, I can also just get stuck in the lower qualities of the unique identity and say, okay, I'm this Gemini who is blah, blah. No, that's my unique identity in this lifetime. It's not my Atman transcendent identity. The sun is trying to burn off that illusion. So even though I might, be successful as a Gemini or be connected to my unique identity as Gemini and be able to live it and feel good about it, it's still going to be limited because it's still unique identity in this lifetime. The transcendent consciousness comes from the sun, and the sun is to burn off that. And most of the time we're very far from that because we're not even living our truthful identity yet. We're living some personality or some emotional identity. We're living some low-level personality mixed with ego, mixed with emotional identity. And then the sun is trying to get the truth out of that, and it's very hard. So the way it really works is we have to purify all of these things, right? And understand what they are first, in general, like I'm explaining in this video, and then how are we doing it as each individuals? Because again, the last one, the moon and the emotional identity, again, might be the most prominent, because again, everything in your life is going to show up as a feeling about it. Even all of this stuff I'm saying right now, it's all fine and good, but if I'm in a bad mood or I'm depressed or something, I'm going to have a certain feeling, and that's just going to be a wet blanket that covers all of it. And it does happen. As much as I might get close to my truthful Gemini identity or closer to my transcendent nature, if I wake up and I'm just grouchy in a bad mood, then that's all that's going to happen. Because that's what the moon is, right? And again, as it says, and you may get stuck in that feeling about the thing and never do anything about the actual thing. So again, how do your emotions determine? And by the way, I see this all the time. Sometimes people have enormous potential for all of these things, but then that moon is sitting there and they're just like, and they never do anything. And they mistake their feelings about the thing to be the thing. It's like, okay, I get it. That's how you feel about it. But now do you want to do anything? Because they don't get readings and just have me endlessly analyze how they feel. They want to know what to do. So many times I'll tell them, well, okay, here's what's happening. Here's what you're trying to do. And then they'll be like, oh, but I just feel, oh, but then how do I feel. Everything's about feeling. So again, seeing where this fits in. And again, how to manage that. This is why we do spiritual practices, because then you realize you're not just your feelings. The main thing that needs to meditate is the moon, because otherwise we're just in this subjective world of emotions and everything just keeps kind of looping back, right? So again, understanding your emotional identity, habits, and patterns, which can keep you stuck and not changing things, is very important. And it begins with going deeper into the moon, having emotional courage. But how does that work? So again, very important. These are the things I'm going to talk about in the report. But aside from getting the report, you should understand these things. That's why I made the video. And of course, I have the report there as well. But these are really the kind of pillars of your ascendance through separate identity and being stuck, wondering, is this my ego? Is this my truthful nature? Leading all the way back to that self that is not just in this world. And in the reading, if you do want to get the reading, I also will talk about the current cycle, Vedic astrology, always unique cycles of karma leading us forward. But again, how do those cycles lead you to the current identity? So again, I just wanted to make this video. It's very important. We're also, as I record this, October 29th of 2024, we're very near Diwali, which is when sun and moon come together, the festival of light, which is very much about a rebirth of consciousness. That's very much about the times we're in right now. And again, we throw these words around and think we know what they mean. And half the time we don't even know what we're talking about or what we're saying. So I thought I'd make this and also give people access to this. I'll drop a link for the reading if that's also interesting to you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.